Hi, thank you for joining me on Jane Reads today. My name is Jeanette. Today I'm going to share with you my TBR bingo board that I had created back in the middle of January. I talked about this in my April TBR, and it's kind of the books that I'm prioritizing for the year. So when I created this board, I kind of took a few different approaches to put it together. So the first one is I looked at my Excel spreadsheet that I have of all the books I own or my books on my wish list that I want to read. And so I went through that. Then I looked at my bookshelves to see, okay, what books on here are calling out to me that I really want to read, that are either I've never read or it's been a while since I read them. Then I went to my Goodreads account, and I've been using Goodreads since 2011. So I looked through it and okay, there's a few books that I own that aren't on Goodreads, which means I haven't read them in 11 years. Might be time to decide if I'm going to read them again, or is it time to let them go and kind of somebody else can enjoy them rather than them just sit here. So that's what I did, a kind of a combo of all three of those things. And I came up with 24 books to put on my TBR. The middle spot is a free spot. So then my plan was, okay, so I will go through this, and as I complete them, kind of what's my reward for finally reaching these. I'm still not 100% sure on what that is, because do I get a goal when I get one spot fully colored, like one line, or do I only get a reward when I have the full box filled in, like all the books read? I'm thinking I'm going for all the box, but again, I'm still, what do you think I should do? I kind of want to do, I don't want to go too outside the box, like too high, because I'm also trying to be good and kind of borrow books, kind of encourage, like, I don't want all my money spent on books, because that's very easy to do, right? So I'm thinking I'm going to do $1 a book, which is $25 if I can meet them all. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot. However, I'm also going to continue doing, actually, I don't think I've talked about this yet. I don't think I've talked about this. I'm also doing a reward for every number of pages I'm reading. So 1 cent per every page read. So if I finish a book that's 250 pages, I've earned $2.50 towards my book buying budget. So that's kind of, I'm doing that as on top of this as well. So that's why, right? But as you'll find out soon how well that reward is going or not going, we'll see, right? All I can do is it's kind of in my brain. Maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. I don't know, we'll see. So anyways, so on this list, I have 24 books. I went with 13 are books that I own that I've never read, and 11 books are rereads to me. Now, I'm also a series reader. So if I have a book that's part of a series on this list, I obviously plan on reading the rest of the books in the series. That's the way my brain works. That's the way I like to do things. So really, even though there's 24 books on this list, I really have 51 books that I plan to read this year, which sounds like a lot, but my goal is to read at least 70 books this year. I did 75 last year, so I'm not quite sure what I was thinking when I set 70, but I don't feel like changing it yet, so maybe when it gets closer to the year, I might up that. Again, we'll see what happens, right? So anyways, so we'll start. Some of the books are colored in because I've already read them. Okay, so book number 1 is Juliette and the Monday Mandates by Becky Doughty. I'm not sure if I'm saying that name. But this book, I talked to my April TBR because it is on my April TBR list. I purchased this back in 2017 and haven't read it yet, so that was why it made the list. Then book number 2 is a reread for me. It's The Wedding Dress by Rachel Hauck. I first read this in 2014. I rated it 5 stars, and it was the book that introduced me to Rachel's writing, and I just absolutely loved it. So I plan on rereading it 2014, 22, 8 years later. Do I enjoy it as much? I don't know. We'll see. Then book number 3 was Safe in His Arms by Melanie D. Sniker. Now, again, I have already read this book. I talked about it in my February wrap-up, and I rated it 4 stars. Book number 4 was The Vanishing Act by Liz Johnson. Again, I've already read this in February, and I have reviewed it in my February wrap-up. And again, I rated it 4 stars. Then, book number 5 was Collateral Damage by Lynette Eason. This is book 1 of her Danger Never Sleeps series. I read all 4 books of this series in February. And again, I already have a video up on my thoughts on that series. I really enjoyed it. Book 1 was a 4-star for me. So then we move on to the next line, which is Never Let Go. Again, I've already read this one. It was Never Let Go by Elizabeth Garlard. And I should kind of... sorry, thinking to myself for a second there. This was a 3-star for me. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, but I had purchased it back in 2019, so I thought it's time to read it. Then book number 7 is Where There's Smoke by Susan May Warren. This is book 1 of the Montana Fire series. I purchased this book in 2016 and I haven't read it yet. And Susan May Warren is one that I tend, especially her suspense, I tend to go for right away. I don't know why I haven't read this book yet, why it's been sitting on my TBR for so long. I own book 1, book 2, and book 4 of the series, so I just need to get book 3 and read them back to back. So that is the plan. Then book number 8 was The Witnesses by Robert Whitlow, and yes, I've already read this one. This one was probably my favorite read of March. I rated it 4 stars. Again, I purchased it in 2017 and hadn't read it, so it was time to read it. Then book number 9 is another reread for me. It is 5 Days in Skye by Carla Laureano. This one I first read in 2013 and I read it again in 2015. Both times I rated it 5 stars. I'm planning on reading it again. It's one of those that just, I remember really enjoying it. And I mean, I've read it twice and I still remember enjoying it. So it was like, it's kind of one of those comfort reads for me that I just want to go back to the Isle of Skye and see. My mom finally read it. I bought it for her, probably 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. She finally read it this winter and enjoyed it as much as I did. So it's my turn to reread it. Then number 10 is another reread for me. It was Nichols by Karen Baney. This one I read in 2015, rated it 5 stars, and it's another one of those that just, when I think of what books come to mind first when I think of favorite books, and that's one of the books. I don't remember why I enjoyed it so much though. So it is time to reread it and kind of, why do I remember liking this book? What was it about it that stuck out to me? So we'll see. Then number 11 was In Need of Protection by Jill Elizabeth Nelson. I have read this one in February and it was in my February wrap-up. I did only rate it 3 stars, but it'd been sitting on my TBR, like I owned it for 3 years. It was 2 years, sorry. And so it was time to read it. Actually, no, that's wrong. Sorry, I'm thinking of a different book. This one came out in February 2011. No, it didn't. This one came out in February 21. So it was, I'd had it for a year, so I read it in February. Then number 12 is Capital Gains by Chip Gaines. This is kind of an autobiography, personal growth and success, self-help is what the back says. I bought this in 2019. I remember really enjoying the show Fixer Upper, and I read their book, The Magnolia Story. I thought I owned it in physical, but it must be on my Kindle. And so I saw this and I'm like, I want to get this one and read it. Again, I've had it for almost 3 years now and haven't read it yet. So it was one that I needed to prioritize. Then book number 14 is Provenance by Carla Laureano. So this is the second book by her on the list. I had pre-ordered this one when it released in August 21, and I haven't read it yet. However, I did put it on my April TBR, so I really hope to get it this month. Get to reading it this month. Then number 15 is Fatal Convictions by Randy Singer. This one is a legal thriller. This one I purchased in 2017. I put it on my March TBR. I didn't get to it, so it is on my April TBR, and it's actually the book that I plan on starting tonight because I just finished my other book. So this one will definitely be read this month, and I'm hoping I will enjoy it. Then number 16 is Things I Never Told You by Beth Vogt. Vogk. I'm not sure how to say her name. This one I purchased in 2019, and I've heard a few good things about this author, so I think I've only read one other book by her. I'm not really sure though. So since I've had it for a couple years, it was time to read it. Then number 17 is Don't Look Back by Lynette Eason. Now this is book 2 of her Women of Justice series. I have no idea why I put book number 2 as the book on my bingo board and not book 1 of this series. I don't know. Was I thinking this was book 1? I don't know what I was thinking. So I read this book in 2012. It was the book that introduced me to Lynette Eason, and I rated it 5 stars at the time. So again, it's another book that is on my April TBR. So hopefully I will enjoy it as much as I did the first time. We'll see. Then moving on to number 18 is Danger in the Shadows by D. Henderson. This is the prequel to her O'Malley series. Now, the O'Malley series is probably D. Henderson's most popular series, and it is the series that introduced me to Christian fiction suspense books. I don't know when this book came out. This book came out, no, it's not as old as I thought, actually. This book says copyright 1999. So I've got this, and I have all 6 O'Malley's books in hardcover. This one's not hardcover. So it's a book that is not on my Goodreads, which means I have not read it in 11 years, but it's been sitting on my shelves. So actually, there's the O'Malley ones, the 2 big. There are 3 books in one. So it was time. Will I enjoy it as much as I did the first time? Again, that's a question. So then number 19 is Kept by Sally Bradley. This one, I remember being hard-hitting, kind of could be triggering for some people with the subject matter, but I remember really enjoying it. And I read this one in 2016. I rated it 5 stars. So it's another one of those that when I think of favorite books or books that I read that have stuck out in my mind, that's one of the books that sticks out in my mind. So I want to reread it and kind of remember it a little bit more. Then number 20 is Never Again Goodbye by Terry Blackstock. This was a reread for me. I read this in February, and No, I read this in March, and it is in my wrap-up video that just went up a couple days ago, or a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Depends when this video is going up, when my March wrap-up went up. So I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, as much as I remember enjoying it the first time, but that's okay, because Terry Blackstock, this is one of her earlier works in Christian fiction, and she has some more recent ones that I really, really enjoyed. So then, number 21 is Daring Chloe by Laura Jensen Walker. This is another one that was sitting on my shelves. I have all 3 books in the series. This is book 1 of the Getaway Girls novel. Getaway Girls series. This is another one, though, that I have never reviewed on Goodreads, never marked as read on Goodreads, so it's been sitting on my shelf. It's time to reread it and decide, am I going to keep it? And, oh, it has the Eiffel Tower in the front. That means I can use this book for something else I was planning on doing later. Have to wait and see. So then, number 22 is another reread, and this is Nothing But Trouble by Susan May Warren. This is the second book by her on this list. This is book 1 of the PJ Sugar novel. PJ is becoming a private investigator. I really, really enjoyed this book. I remember really enjoying this book, but again, it's another one that's not on my Goodreads as being read. So it's been 11 years at least since I read it, so it is time. Then book number 23 is Laurel's Dream by Pepper Basham. This one I actually just purchased. It was released in October, and I think I might have got it December or January. So it's not that old. It's probably one of the newest books on my list. So, but it's one, the cover just drew me in, and I've really enjoyed a lot of Pepper's previous works. So I wanted to read this one. So it was fresh in my mind as a new purchase. It had to be on this list. So then number 24 is My Stubborn Heart by Becky Wade. This book is a reread for me. I first read it in 2012. I rated it 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. And it was actually Oshina that reminded me about this book, and that kind of got me thinking, maybe it's time to reread this book. Because Oshina mentioned it as one of her favorite books of all time. And I'm like, I remember really enjoying it, but would it be up there on my list? I don't remember enough of it. If I'm remembering correctly, though, it has to do with a farm and horses, and that just takes my heart. I love reading about them, so I look forward to reading this one and see. So then the last book is book number 25 is Canteen Dreams by Cara Putman. This is a historical fiction series. This is book 1 of the series. I purchased this book in 2017, and I've never read it. And I own books 1 and 2, and I just don't have book 3 yet. But I'm going to read 1 and 2, and then if I want to continue, I'll buy book 3 so that I can finish the series. So those are the 24 books I plan on reading this year that I've kind of made the priority for my reading. Now, all readers are aware, there's other books that are on my list. Obviously, my TBR list has probably 80 some of these books. Not all these books, obviously, but at least 80 of them. So it is definitely these are the ones that I'm prioritizing this year. So out of the books I've mentioned, what have you read any of them? Is there any that I really should be the next one to read? Now remember, I am reading Fatal Convictions and Provenance this month. So, but what books should I pick up after those 2 are done? Any recommendations? Or is there another book that you really think I need to read, like, tomorrow? Okay, well, thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.